I had lunch the other day with a client, and her and I were having a conversation about hiring, and she was asking me over the years, what did I find were some of the secrets of hiring managers and why were some successful and why I found others weren't. And I really noticed a couple things, especially over the pandemic, and I thought, this was a really great conversation. And clients that we work with, they seem to be very, very successful because they had the 7 things that we found were consistent always that clients did. And these clients that followed these 7 secrets during the pandemic were unbelievably successful. Like, they just grew so much during the pandemic. It was unbelievable. They were hiring, they were calling us and saying, like, look at Linda, like, we need some help here. We need to hire some great people. And where other companies that were in the industry I knew were struggling, and I believe that a lot of it had to do with they didn't follow these 7 secrets. Their hiring processes were not the same. They weren't consistent, and individuals were leaving their organizations, or they were terminating them because they weren't hiring properly, in my opinion and in my experience over the 22 years that I've been recruiting. So let me share some of those 7 secrets, share the 7 secrets that I know they consistently followed. The first was, they had clear, concise job descriptions when they were hiring. And so they knew exactly what they were looking for in terms of the individuals and what these individuals needed to do. And when they were interviewing these candidates, they knew what was being expected as well. So when they were going through the interview process, there was no surprise. And once they get hired, there's no surprise either. So, there's no change in the job. Initially, obviously, when they're onboarded, when they're trained, when they're coached and mentored. So, that really helps because they're hiring individuals that have the skills to do the job, and they're interested in doing the job, and there's buy-in and commitment along the process. So when I interview candidates sometimes that have joined organizations and they're unhappy and they want to leave after a year or 2, it's because they say that what they signed up or what their understanding of the job or the job description didn't match at all, and they were very unhappy with that. So I think that is an important number 1 secret for sure. Second is the salary and the overall compensation was fair and relative to what they were doing. And it doesn't mean that you have to overpay somebody, but they want to be paid fairly and within the market values. So even if a company, like I have a company that pays a base salary that is lower than their competitors, but the overall compensation, a monthly commission and a quarterly bonus for their contributions to the organization is fair and better than the competitors who pay a higher base salary. And they really reward their people for helping the company grow, as an example. So whatever your compensation structure is, make sure that it's one that attracts individuals to come to your organization, and also that they feel that they're being rewarded adequately to the contribution that they're doing for your organization to help you grow and for what you're asking them to do. So also meaning that if somebody's working in your organization and they join and they're doing a certain role, and then you ask them to do additional responsibilities, don't just keep paying them the same amount of money. Make sure that you're adjusting the pay to be reflective of that. It's not just a learning and development. And I've heard managers say, well, I don't know what the problem is. They wanted learning and development. We're giving them that. So, and they don't adjust the pay for that. Well, after a while, people, start to think, geez, I'm working harder, doing more, I'm traveling, it's taking me away from my current job where I could be making commission. I don't feel that I'm being appreciated for it, I'm not getting paid for it. So, there starts to become this feeling of not being appreciated, being taken advantage of. So just make sure that your compensation and how you're rewarding people is aligned with what they're doing and what their contribution to your organization is what I'm suggesting. So that's secret number 2. Number 3, that there's a pre-established interview process. So it's well organized, it's consistent every time. The candidates know what to expect. External interview, recruiters know what the process is, or your internal recruiters, so that it's a well-oiled machine. It's 3 to 5 interviews max. By the way, here's who you're going to interview with. This is the timeline. So if your interview process is a little longer, tell them it's a little longer. Tell them that this is what it's going to be, so that there's no hurry up and wait scenario going on. But more importantly, especially nowadays, you want to get the top talent through the interview process, get them on board, don't lose them to somebody else. I see that happening a lot. I hear about it. We make sure we coach our clients not to do that. Let's get the interview process down to less interviews, making sure that decision makers are available, that you get it done quickly. It's a smooth interview process. You know right away within the first 1 or 2 interviews whether these individuals are ones that you want to move forward or not, and that it's individuals who are involved in the interview process make themselves available, so that you have your interviews, you have your offer letters ready, if you're doing reference checks and background checks, that is also well organized, and that offer letters are already pre-done so that you can just fill them in, and that they get to the candidates right away, that HR is not holding that up. I see that happen frequently. That's ridiculous. That you have a well done interview process, and all of a sudden, boom, there's a cog in the wheel, and HR is taking forever to get the offer letter. Like, that should never happen. So make sure that that's done quickly. The next one, number 4, is the other thing is the hiring managers are invested in the interview process. They're committed to it. They're not delegating that over to HR. HR might be involved, but the hiring managers are well invested. They communicate to HR or their external partners. Everybody that we work with, we communicate with the hiring managers all the time. It's not the HR that we're communicating with. We're talking to the hiring managers, and we're getting feedback, and we're giving that feedback to the candidates. So the hiring managers are well invested. They know who and what they want to hire. They communicate that to their internal HR. They communicate that to their external HR. So they make the time to do the interviewing. They don't see this as a secondary. The most important thing for hiring managers is when you have the right people on your team, your job is easier. So invest in that, do that. So, that's a secret. That's one of the most important things that they do, that's for sure. The other thing is that the hiring managers are receptive to feedback in terms of things that they want to do in terms of having a better hiring process. So, not to be afraid of getting some feedback as well. So that is also really important for it to be successful. So getting, responsive in terms of open and responsive to recommendations from the recruiter in terms of, here's what, you're asking for something, but that's not realistic, and here's the reasons why. So they're open and receptive to that. If you need to increase the salary, if you need to maybe change the parameters of the candidate a little bit, they are open to that. Maybe cross-pollinate, get candidates from other industries, because especially if we're in a talent-scarce market, so sometimes what you're looking for might not be available. So for instance, the medical device industry is supposed to be booming till 2035. So if we are in a massive growth phase in the medical device industry and life sciences in general, where is the talent going to come from? And we also have a mass exodus of people retiring, leaving. So we've got to look at creative ways to bring individuals into our industry, not just new graduates, but experienced people. So being receptive to individuals with transferable skills and individuals who are really, really good at hiring and looking at talent. My clients are always open to looking at other individuals and being creative. And that has helped them be extremely successful because these individuals come with new perspective. They're eager to learn, eager to please, and that has helped them grow astronomically. The other thing is they're also respectful of candidates' time. So when candidates are going through the interview process, they're very open and flexible of when they might be available to interview. They're respectful of the fact that, they don't want it to drag on. Also too, they don't take up 6 hours of their day as an example sometimes. So they recognize if they're going to do interviews and they have to take a very busy executive as an example, and they're going to meet with a lot of people, they try to do it all in one day because they recognize these people have busy jobs themselves. So they don't have the attitude that, well, if they're interested in our company, they're going to make the time. No, they recognize that these people also have invested in the career that they're in right now, and that they have obligations to them. So they look at, how can we accommodate these individuals through the interview process, and recognize that sometimes, especially with executives or leaders, that there are necessary interviews that they have to go through, which might include, profiling or meeting with psychologists. It was interesting because the lunch meeting that I had, she was going through some interview process that she was a bit disturbed by because of the length of the interview process, and she felt a bit a lack of consideration to her time. And she had already invested 7 hours, and they were now asking her to invest 6 hours, which with a behavioral psychologist. And she had just completed 4 hours of profiling and then had to meet with him for 6 hours. And she felt that she was happy to do it, but there was no explanation of it. And she didn't really understand sort of the relevance of it towards the role that she was doing. She had no questions around her ability to manage P&L, building business, strategy, nothing, this whole time during her interview process. So there really was a lack of communication, understanding the investment of time, meeting with the psychologist, and communication. So very interesting perspective on her part. She's been through executive interviews before because she's been in a couple of executive roles. This was the first time that it was so poorly handled and not communicated very well, and disrespectful of her time was her perception. And number 7, they hired within a timely manner. It wasn't dragged out to be a 3-month process. And that is a very important step and secret in the interview process. They hire quickly. They don't hire so quickly they make a mistake. They go through these steps. They know what they're doing, but they don't drag it on and make decisions of, is the people that they're interviewing, are they the correct individuals? Do they want to move them through the process? And if they find the ideal candidate, they hire them, and they go through the process like I talked about, and they make sure they get the job offers, and they get them on board, and they make great hiring decisions. And the last thing I want to mention, which isn't one of the 7 secrets here, but it is a secret, is after the hiring process, they have great onboarding, great coaching and mentoring, and I will do other videos on that. I hope you found that helpful. And if you've liked these 7 secrets, please give us a thumbs up, and also make recommendations to our YouTube channel, and join as well. And I'll look forward to getting any feedback that you have, and have a great day.